Iran, Gaza, Ukraine, Taiwan, places in which the United States is going to get involved in. Oh, I almost forgot Yemen too. These are locations that are the top priority for the United States government. But to be more precise, it is what the military-industrial complex wants. Now, we've been warned about the military-industrial complex thanks to people who've been covering how much money is being wasted on these wars. We have great independent journalists like Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, Glenn Greenwald, the people from the Gray Zone, Mint Press News, the Jimmy Dore Show, Due Dissidents, Hardlens Media. Hey, we've all been covering it. Shout out to INN and Revolutionary Blackout Network. But see, the thing is, when we have these unending wars, I don't think we realize that the fact we are wasting all this treasury on it, we'll never get it back. And plus, it's always tiptoeing us closer to World War III, which is something that I think none of us want to see. I don't want to be one of the many survivors envying the dead. So I want to give a huge shout out to Glenn Greenwald, who is one of the few, dauntless few, independent journalists out there really talking about it. So here, let's listen to this interview with Senator Ron Johnson.
If you look at polling of Americans consistently for almost 20 years now, they, across the spectrum, left, right, center, say that they are tired of endless wars, that they want the United States to pay more attention to our own country and less attention and involvement in foreign wars. And yet it seems like the United States always finds new wars to get involved in. We pulled out of Afghanistan. It was barely 6 months that went by when we were heavily involved in the war in Ukraine. I realized Russia invaded, but we decided to get involved in that war. Donald Trump ran on a platform in 2016 and won on this idea that we need to be much less involved in the conflicts and internal affairs of foreign countries, and we always seem to be. One of the more cynical views is that one reason that happens is because war is a very profitable business for a lot of very powerful corporations, arms dealers, Boeing, that wield a lot of power in Washington, that fund both political parties, and therefore wield a lot of influence to keep this military-industrial complex, to use Eisenhower's terms, very well funded. Without delving into sort of a conspiracy theory, just like basic notions of lobbying power and corporate power inside Washington, do you think that's one of the reasons why we always are involved in so many wars?
First of all, I don't think that's a cynical assessment. I think that's a very accurate assessment. I don't think we heeded Eisenhower's warning nearly as much as we should have. I think the military-industrial complex drives so much of what we're experiencing here today, the endless wars. Again, I can't tell you, how many governments we have through covert action, how many governments we've overturned. What's been the net result of that? There's some very interesting books. JFK and the Unspeakables, The Devil's Chessboard, talking about Alan Dulles' CIA. Again, you read our history and you really come away scratching your head. That's why I'm talking about looking back at history, doing an honest assessment of what all of our foreign entanglements have resulted in. It's not a pretty assessment. It's not going to show that we've done the right thing. We've probably done the wrong thing time and time again. Again, I'm somebody that loves this country. I think the American people are good, but I think we've been grossly misserved by our government in so many cases. And certainly in one aspect, it's in terms of our foreign entanglements, which our founding fathers tried to get us to avoid. They were very skeptical of foreign entanglements, tried to do everything they could to avoid them. We unfortunately haven't done that. We should.
Unfortunately, nobody's listening. Case in point, here's Representative Thomas Massie. I regard myself a wartime speaker. No, that's not him saying that. Get a grip. We are not at war. You can't use that as an excuse to justify a passage of warrantless spying, a bloated omnibus, or $100 billion in foreign aid. Because he was quoting none other than Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. He's a wartime speaker. Gee, I thought we weren't at war, but we are. We're involved in many wars.
Look, we are in unprecedented times. Okay. We're in dangerous times, as has been articulated here, around the world, and here at home. We need steady leadership. We need steady hands at the wheel. Look, I regard myself as a wartime speaker. I mean, in a literal sense, we are. I knew that when I took the gavel. I didn't
You heard that. One more time.
regard myself as a wartime speaker.
Say that again.
Look, I regard myself as a wartime speaker.
One more time.
I regard myself as a wartime speaker. I mean, in a literal sense, we are. I knew that when I took the gavel. I didn't anticipate that this would be an easy path. Former Speaker Newt Gingrich posted a couple days ago on his social media that this is the hardest challenge that's faced a speaker probably in the history of the country, in the moment we're in right now. He said, arguably, maybe comparable to the Civil War, but maybe worse.
Wow. You know what happens when you have people who talk like this? We once again get people trying to dust out the old playbook of weapons of mass destruction. Hey, let's fly over to Iran. No evidence Iran is developing nuclear weapons, as the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, has no evidence that Iran has an active nuclear weapons program. Director General Rafi Gross has told journalists. The senior official was commenting on remarks made by Israel's UN envoy, the same envoy that Netanyahu was once part of, who said, "Oh yeah, we can end terrorism by getting rid of Saddam Hussein's regime." How that turn out? Again, the same envoy who, again, from Israel, the UN envoy, who claimed on Sunday that Tehran could obtain a nuclear weapon within weeks. Now, the IAE has also said that he is not responsible for statements by IAE member states, but that the agency itself considers Israel's claim to be unsubstantiated. Well, the United States also said that they're weapons of mass destruction, and people said, wait, no, hold on, let's do some more fact checking. There may not be any weapons of mass destruction. And surprise, surprise, we still haven't found them. Maybe it's on the to-do list for the CIA. Who knows? Once they're done spying in on you, of course. As far as the agency who is inspecting there is concerned, we don't have any information or indication that there is a nuclear weapon program in Iran, he told reporters on Tuesday after briefing members of the UN Security Council in New York. The fact that there is an accumulation of uranium enriched at very, very high level doses does not automatically mean you have a nuclear weapon. He was referring to the previous discoveries by IAEA inspectors of traces of highly enriched uranium in Iran. Say it with me, folks. What could possibly go wrong? Especially when you have Matt Miller constantly dismissing the fact that, Iran and Israel could very well be going at it. Let's play this video.
You are now pressuring Israel not to respond on the Iranian attack, and at the same time saying that if they've been attacked, you will defend them. Do you see that this was counterproductive to what you're trying to do? You're enabling them to respond to Iran while you're saying to them, we'll protect you when Iran retaliates back.
So, first of all, you are, there are a couple things in your questions I have not said from this podium. I'm not going to speak to our private diplomatic conversations and what we are sharing with Israel privately. But publicly, of course, we are committed to the defense of Israel. And there is, that is something that the president has made clear from day one, something you've heard the secretary say clear, and it's something that will continue to be the case. And I think, if I could get at kind of a broader issue.
This guy's completely pale-skinned, like no blood in him whatsoever. Is he human? Who knows?
I think inherent in your question, there have been times over the past 6 months since October 7th that Israel has taken actions with which we don't agree, or Israel hasn't moved as quickly as we would like to implement certain changes. And we engage with them on those issues, and we try to get improvements, and we will continue to try and do that. But at a fundamental level, there is a bond between the United States and the people of Israel. And that bond rests on our shared security. And one of the things that we will continue to be committed to is the defense of that security.
You know what that means? More funding, more money for war, more hypocrisy, especially from our Democratic and Republican lawmakers. That means also more money for Ukraine, too. And don't worry, we're going to get to Ukraine very shortly.
And are you willing to risk a regional total war for this?
I think you've heard me say here a number of times that we are working to pursue de-escalation. And that has been the focus of our diplomacy since October 7th, not just over the weekend, but since day one, is trying to pursue de-escalation and prevent the conflict from widening and spreading and expanding.
Last question, but I want to go back to a statement you issued an hour earlier about West Bank violence. You started the statement by saying, we strongly condemn the murder of 13-year-old Israeli Benjamin Achimaya. And the second paragraph, you say, we are also increasingly concerned by the violence against Palestinians that led to the death of 2 Palestinians. Why the distinction?
There is no distinction. We condemn we condemn all loss of innocent life.
Let's have democracy in the chat. Do you believe this jagoff up here that's attempting to be a human? Type 1 for yes, kid. He's just he's trying to do his job. Type 2, no, they don't. And I'll explain why. Explain why very shortly. When you have politicians having conversations like this, not only people in the administration, but now there's also the talk of, remember the Iron Dome funding in 2021? Remember that? Petridge Farm remembers that. Let's play this.
Let me ask you this. I know you're referring to extremists in the Republican Party. I'm curious if there's been any recriminations or even conversations in the Democratic Party with people like AOC and others who were unhappy back in 2021, for example, about funding the Iron Dome, where she ultimately voted present in the end. I know she's switched her position more recently on this, but clearly the Iron Dome over the weekend saved countless hundreds of thousands.
Hold on. From previous reports I read there, Buster, it was the United States, United Kingdom, France, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. I'm sorry. I almost said Saudi Arabia. Allegedly. But there were 4 other countries that were participating in stopping those missiles and drones from going into Israel, which, according to Israel, said they didn't even make an impact. So it wasn't just the Iron Dome. It was countries, other countries doing that. Say it correctly, sir.
If not more lives. And whether there are conversations inside your party with people like that.
Also, you saw it.
And also, we cannot forget Silver Surfer. Iran let them know that they were coming. So, see, it's sort of like throwing a haymaker punch. You could see it. I'm pretty sure all of us seen somebody signaling a punch before in a bar. You know, you see 2 people about to fight. One of them's really hammered out of their mind. They are really giving that signal like, oh, I'm going to punch you. You see it, you block it, and then you knock them the hell out.
To your point, which is a really important one, between Iron Dome and Arrow 3 and David Sling, all these missile defense systems that were able to, working with not just the United States and Great Britain. And
Jamie Teisel also writes, shout out to Jamie, what's up? Also, Iran was targeting military bases, and they warned the U.S. and Israel that the attack was coming. Of course, the attack was coming. Of course, Barnes Holmes said, as I understand it, those were junk missiles Iran was tossing out there anyways. Liana says, Iran warned them privately. Very true.
And France, and of course, Saudi Arabia and the Jordanians able to knock everything out but a couple, and it was remarkable. Thank God for that missile defense systems, for those missile defense systems. But yeah, you're right.
But they were told about it. They were told about it first. Like, hey, we're going to attack you.
It's very frustrating, and some of my colleagues, by the way, there were people on the far right that have voted against these packages as well. And most recently in this budget where we just passed, that had missile defense system funding in it as well. And I hope people were able to see what can be accomplished with the right systems and the right technology, and why missile defense systems are so important.
And why we need to invest in it instead of helping out people, the U.S. citizens. We got money for forever wars. And there's a lot of people who profit off of it. Before this horrific conflict or potential conflict with Iran and Israel, before October 7th, before the destruction of Gaza, there was a little known country called Ukraine that was really milking it in. They were getting that big old government check, something that we all wish we could get. But now, I wanted to pull up this article here because we cannot forget the billions upon billions of dollars of aid, military aid, that also enriched many of these corrupt politicians in Ukraine that went there. U.S. politicians don't care about Ukraine, says Zelensky. First of all, Zelensky, number 1, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Number 2, they never cared in the first place because they don't care about their own citizens. What makes you think you're so special? Number 3, They only cared about their portfolios. Before the Russian tanks crossed the border into Ukraine, Congress, a lot of these congressmen and women, to be inclusive, Democrat and Republican, to be very inclusive and bipartisan, were given a heads up. Now, do you think Congress formed an emergency session calling for diplomatic envoys to be sent to both Russia and Ukraine to stop any kind of fighting before anything got out of hand? No. They called up their brokers. They called up their third-party people who handle their finances. They called up relatives and friends who could do their little insider trading, and they made a huge financial killing in 2022, 2023, and even now in 2024 with the military-industrial complex and all the arms and armaments that went to Ukraine. Zelensky, you have the audacity to say that U.S. politicians don't care about Ukraine. They don't. They never did. They cared about money. Number two, they don't care about their own citizens. They only care about money. And number three, it was all about the money, but baby, all about the money. And look how sad he is. Look at that. That's a sad face. It's not a happy face. That's a sad face. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has accused U.S. politicians of playing political games around the issue of aid for Kiev. So, by the way, none of you are ever going to see that money. I'm so sorry. They're not going to pay us back either. Claiming that they do not care how many people in his country are dying. To be fair, Donald Trump kind of cares. I want people to stop dying. Stop dying. Zelensky's comments come as U.S. lawmakers prepare to vote on a controversial aid package for Ukraine that has been stalled in Congress for months due to a bitter dispute between Democrats and Republicans. Yeah, it's all what it is. It's not like ideology. It's just all about who's going to get paid what. In an interview on Monday, Zelensky referred to comments made at the weekend by the Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson. The U.S. politician told Fox News that he planned to move forward with a vote on an aid bill for Israel this week without specifying when a Ukrainian package would be taken up or whether it would be tied to funding for West Jerusalem. This is pure politics and a disgrace for the world and a disgrace for democracy. Democracy. Zelensky told PBS NewsHour, nobody cares how many people are dying in Ukraine every day. They only care about their approval ratings. Well, yeah. Zelensky, hey, welcome to the club. Hey, hold on. Guys, I want to see round of applause emojis in the live stream chat. Welcome to the club. You figured it out. They only care about approval ratings and their portfolios, their financial portfolios. But you figured it out, Zelensky. I knew you would. I knew you would, buddy. I knew you would. Johnson has since promised, by the way, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, has since promised to advance the long-stalled Ukraine aid bill sought by President Joe Biden this week. Multiple news outlets reported on Monday. Johnson reportedly told Republican colleagues at a closed-door meeting that he intends to allow the House to vote on a standalone bill in the coming days that would ensure additional military aid for Kiev. The House will also be expected to vote on separate bills providing more assistance to Israel and Taiwan. House Republicans have previously refused to back the foreign aid bill unveiled by Biden in October, which includes a $61 billion in assistance for Ukraine. $61 billion. But we can't have Medicare for all. That's too expensive. Affordable education, too expensive. Investing into our infrastructure, too expensive. Affordable housing, too expensive. None of y'all are getting that. That's too expensive. But money for war? Oh man, we got to go ahead and invest in it. To quote Lindsey Graham Cracker, killing Russians is the best investment that they've ever made. And speaking of investments, here, let's listen to a sad man cry.
Это означает, что речь идет не о безопасности. Это чистая политика. И это позор для всего мира и позор для демократии. Для тех, кто говорит только о демократии, это просто разговоры.
Почему это позор? Почему ты используешь это слово?
Ну, если Конгресс разделит эту помощь после всего, что произошло, мы разделимся на израильтян и украинцев, то это означает, что это вопрос выборов в Соединенных Штатах. Это вопрос чистой политики. Что теперь, когда весь мир говорит...
By the way, want to give it up for Michael Phillips. Zelensky should be happy. He won the lottery. Michael, haven't you heard of the lottery curse? Yes, Zelensky got what he wanted. He just didn't know what it would cost him. It would cost him his soul.
Говорит, как мог Иран нанести удар по Израилю. Так что теперь нам нужно поддержать только Израиль и забыть о том, что происходит в Украине. Это чистая политика. Никого не волнует.
And he writes, this is pure politics. No one cares how many people die in Ukraine every day. The politicians don't care. But hold on, folks. I saved the best video for last. Did you know that Mehdi Hassan actually created his own independent network? That's right. Our friends from corporate media, because Hassan was let loose from BSDNC. Remember that? They let him go? Well, now he's in our backyard. God damn, I hate these corporate jagoffs. Anyways, he had an exclusive, incredible sit-down interview with AOC. If we want safety in this region, we have to condition U.S. military aid. That's to Israel. Really, AOC. After what the House of Representatives just voted on, saying about from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is anti-Semitic. Oh, my goodness. What about all that ridiculous military spending aid packages that were sent to Ukraine previously? So hold on, let's listen to this. This is big brain chess right here.
And you talked about enabling. Our enabling constitutes mainly arms sales. It's a big part of our enabling. Number one, did you ever imagine that Nancy Pelosi would come out for conditions on arms sales of all people? And number two, post this weekend with the Iranian attack on Israel, what are you saying to colleagues who say, well, of course we have to arm Israel now? What are you saying to the Jared Moskowitz's and Josh Gottheimers?
Well, on your first note, I do think it's important for people to take a pause and realize how much of a dramatic sea change there has been. The mere notion or suggestion of conditioning U.S. military aid to Israel was unthinkable 7 months ago. Politically unthinkable. Never in the history of the United States have we had a conversation like this.
Really? Let's listen to that big brain statement again one more time.
How much of a dramatic sea change there has been. The mere notion or suggestion of conditioning U.S. military aid to Israel was unthinkable 7 months ago.
Now, do you really think that they're going to actually follow through with that, AOC? Or is this just you trying to hype up your voting base or trying to bring people to be excited about the Justice Democrats? Because I know one thing. 377 members of Congress just voted from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free as anti-Semitic. I know that out of that 377, 100% of all those politicians are owned by AIPAC or either at pro-Israel lobby groups. They are never going to do that, and Joe Biden is never going to sign off on that, and neither will be members of the U.S. Senate. What evidence do you have? So it's either one, she's completely clueless, or two, she's thinking that all of you are stupid enough to believe everything that she's going to be spewing out on that stage.
Politically unthinkable. Never in the history of the United States have we had a conversation like this. And the fact that, as you mentioned, that even Nancy Pelosi is now signing on to letters about this, we have to understand this is a generational change.
Yep.
Secondly, as to your second point, what we say to folks who resist this is that if we want safety in this region, we have to condition U.S. military aid, which we do to every country in the world, by the way. It's actually stopping the exemptions instead of creating one that we're talking about. And it's the creation of this exemption that has...
This is a whole big word salad of nothing. She keeps on mentioning exemption. But it doesn't have enough support. You don't have enough support. If you truly do believe this, then you must know that you're speaking into the void. Congress will not do this. Congress will not follow through on this.
That has contributed, in my view, to destabilizing the region. Because when we say you can do anything you want with this, and as we've seen when there are leaders in the region who will do and will break international law and norms, we are having a hand in that. And the good news about it is that I do believe, I hope, that we are getting to a point.
Marvin Vargas writes, bartender, can I have a menu, please? Give us a menu now.
Where this is no longer a fringe position.
Do you worry that Israel, as a critic of Israel, do you worry that Israel is trying to start a war in the Middle East to distract from Gaza, trying to start a war with Iran. There was the attack on the consulate in Syria, which the Iranians claimed they were retaliating for. If
Joe Anthony, WTF is wrong with her? She seems so superficial. She always has been, man. Always has been. Always will be. Ask her about forced to vote, or ask her about the time when old hagbag Nancy wagged her finger at her and she cried and changed her no vote into a present.
how worried are you about an Israel-Iran war that America gets dragged to, that Biden gets dragged into?
I can't speak to the intent. I don't know if it is volatile decision-making. It is difficult to generally get into the mind of not just one individual, but a cabinet, a government.
Marvin Vargas, get up, go see the White House counselor. You go ahead and keep this family freaking friendly. What's wrong with you, huh? What's wrong with you?
That has its own internal incentives as well that they are responding to within the politics of Israel as well. But what I do know is that this is not safe. And what I do know is that whether intentionally or unintentionally, this is an escalatory environment. And our responsibility, in my belief, is to contribute to the de-escalation of what is.
She's saying a lot of words, trying to put them together as a coherent sentence, but it's a way to deflect and dodge from answering the question. And son, follow through. Come on. Follow through. Like, what is she going to do about it, knowing that Congress is owned by Israel lobby groups, by AIPAC? Those 377 jagoff politicians voted that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is anti-Semitic. That's a way of policing speech. What else do you think they're going to vote in favor of? They're going to probably vote on unconditional aid to Israel. Now, many of those politicians may, post on social media, oh my goodness, what's happening in Gaza is so horrific. Somebody ought to do something about it. AOC, the fact that you stick your neck out for the Democratic Party is pathetic enough, but also the fact that you funnel money to the DCCC is not only sad, but it shows who you really are. And then you have the audacity to do another thing, and that is go ahead and ask your voting base, hey guys, can you please support us and help us out against AIPAC? AIPAC, the same organization that also buys off Democratic and Republican politicians? Yeah, we're also part of the Democratic Party too. That's what you're going to do, AOC?
A very volatile situation. And I believe the president made some actions this weekend, and it actually showed and demonstrated the value of.
Teresa Gonzo, you're absolutely right. She must think we're stupid, and she does. Let's rewind that just a little bit.
Volatile decision-making. It is difficult to generally get into the mind of not just one individual, but a cabinet, a government that has its own internal incentives as well that they are responding to within the politics of Israel as well. But what I do know is that this is not safe. And what I do know is that whether intentionally or unintentionally, this is an escalatory environment. And our responsibility, in my belief, is to contribute to the de-escalation of what is a very volatile situation. And I believe the president made some actions this weekend, and it actually showed and demonstrated the value of conditions, saying we will not support this. And what it led to was a de-escalation.
Yes, a de-escalation of what? Nothing fundamentally changed, AOC. Nothing at all. So how do we end this segment? What can we learn from this? What can we learn from this whole entire nightmare situation? Well, we do know for a fact that no matter what, Congress' number one priority is, number one, to take care of Wall Street. Number two, take care of the banks. Number three, take care of hedge fund managers. Number four, ensure that the lobby groups get the legislation written in their favor first and foremost. Number five, take care of the military-industrial complex. Take care of big pharma. Take care of anything that's going to make them rich. And what's going to make them rich? A lot of these wars that we're dragged into by both Democratic and Republican presidents that is supported by both Democratic and Republican U.S. senators and U.S. House representatives. So AOC and all this stuff, all this talk about unconditional aid, Eisenhower warned us. A lot of people warned us. Many journalists warned us. And the thing is, our media did a fantastic job in deceiving us. And now all this horrific imagery that we have seen in Gaza so far, and all the lives lost in Ukraine, and this real big scare of Israel versus Iran now, many people are wondering, well, will there be a stop to this? Can we stop this? Can there be talks for peace? There's no profit in peace. You can't do that. Not in the United States.